I'd like to thank our Member of Parliament. I know that he is running late for another event. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Assistant Deputy Minister, Tourism Policy and Development Division, Michael Curtis. Before joining tourism, Michael Kurtz was the Assistant Deputy Minister for Canadian Intergovernmental Relations at the Ministry of Intergovernmental Affairs. Since joining the Ontario Public Service in 1986, he spent most of his career in communications in a number of departments, including the Ministries of Community and Social Services, Citizenship, Culture and Recreation, Environment, Education, and the Provincial Cabinet Office. He's also served in roles such as Director of Public Relations, and he has served as Queen's Park Bureau Chief. It is with great pleasure that we introduce and welcome Michael Kurtz.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here today. I think the original invitation went to our former minister, Monique Smith, so on behalf of Monique Smith and our current minister, Michael Chan, I'd like to bring greetings from the Ontario government, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk about the initiatives that we're undertaking with respect to the tourism industry in the province of Ontario, a little bit of where we are now and where we're headed. I'll just start by giving a little bit of a snapshot of the tourism industry in the province of Ontario in total. Tourism is about a $23 billion industry in Ontario. That's 2008 numbers, and that's what we call tourism receipts. So that's a combination of what visitors spend in the province, as well as the travel industry in the province of Ontario. It's an industry that's responsible for about 300,000 jobs in the province, and people in tourism-related industries, if you take tourism-related industries in total, that number doubles. It's a large industry, but it's fragmented. It's a large number of businesses providing goods and services to tourists. About almost 20% of the total number of businesses in the province in 2007 had some role in the tourism industry. And the vast majority, like the rest of the economy, of the businesses in the tourism sector are small and medium-sized business. It's one of the only, if not the only, industry in the province of Ontario that you will find in virtually every part of the province and virtually every electoral district of the province of Ontario. And this is a little bit about where visitors go in the province of Ontario. Not surprisingly, the biggest destinations are Toronto, Niagara Falls, the Niagara area, and Ottawa. And you'll see all of the districts listed there. And as I say, this is an industry that people visit and are tourists in virtually every part of the province of Ontario. One of the things that's interesting to people when they first get involved in tourism in Ontario is to find out that about 80% of our tourists in Ontario come from Ontario. This number is actually a little bit higher even now, because some of the other numbers, which I'll talk about in a second, are going in different directions. Traditionally, the United States, and it remains the largest international source of tourists for Ontario, but overseas visitors make up a small percentage, a very small percentage, only about 2% of our visitors. But if you look at the right-hand column in each of those on this table, you'll see that the people who tend to spend, while the overseas tourists represent only 2% of the visitors, they represent 15% of the spending. So while they will never rival, I don't think, the domestic tourist or the American tourist in terms of sheer numbers, in terms of the amount that they bring per visitor, it's a significant amount, and that's something that we try to keep in mind as we're thinking about our strategies. As an employer, tourism has been a fairly reliable, resilient industry, and as you see, this is a chart that was taken from the 2008 provincial budget. Tourism's employment has grown faster than the rest of the economy, the 20 years from 1987 to 2007. and you'll see some drops along the way, and we can probably all guess what some of the reasons for those things were. But the bottom line is that the industry has continued to grow as an employer in the province of Ontario. And we think there's every opportunity for that to continue to be the case. And obviously, though, this is a challenging time for the tourism industry, in particular 2009. A number of things happening that made for a difficult year for many in the tourism industry. WHTI is the Western Hemisphere Travel Initiative, so that's the initiative of the American government, sometimes called the Passport Initiative, which came into effect in full effect in June of last year. So we saw, and I feel we were just, I was this morning with some people from the Niagara area, and they have seen a really significant drop-off in their visits from the U.S., and that was worsened in June of last year. They saw really a steep decline in that particular month, and that's something that those parts of the province, like this one, which are in the border areas and rely on that American traffic coming up, have really been affected by. Obviously, the recession overall has been a challenge for the tourism industry, and the numbers reflect that challenge. So average daily rates across the province were down almost 6%. That's the average daily rate charged in hotel accommodation across the province, down about 6%. Occupancy rates down about over 4%. Some of those numbers we haven't, especially on the average daily rate side, we haven't seen that decline before. So those are troubling signs. Although I was with the president of the Toronto Hotel Association this morning, and they're seeing a turnaround. Things are looking better. However, as I said earlier, the number of visitors is down. So if you look at 2008 to 2009 in terms of U.S. visitors, it was down 12% into Ontario. And that follows a decline that's been pretty consistent even since the late 90s, even before 9/11. The number of American visitors coming into Canada, into Ontario in particular, has been going down. And last year was... we even saw a decrease in our overseas inbound visitors to Ontario, which we hadn't, well, we had been seeing the American decline for some time. We hadn't been seeing that overseas visit number go down, and that was something that was obviously a cause for concern as well. The positive side of the equation is that we believe in the ministry and the government that tourism is an industry which has incredible potential. As was pointed out in the previous presentations, the places that people can visit has been growing and continues to grow around the world, but also the source markets for people, for tourist destinations, is growing. China, India, Mexico, South Korea were not source markets for Ontario in the past. They are now, and with the approved destination status, which Canada is getting with China, we think that there's even greater opportunities for the province of Ontario, and to look at some of the opportunities that we have to grow those kinds of markets. We have in Gravenhurst, Ontario, the childhood home of Norman Bethune, who's a hero in China. We have in Toronto, we're bringing the International Indian Film Awards to the city in 2011. So those are things that we think can bring these tourists from these relatively new, from our perspective, markets in. And the United Nations World Tourism Organization says by 2020, international arrivals, people crossing borders, will reach $1.6 billion, and that's about a doubling from a couple of years ago. So we think there's great opportunities in terms of international tourists, the American market. We think there's certainly challenges there. That's a huge market that wants to travel with the right product, with the right marketing. We think that there's real opportunities there. More Ontarians are staying home as well. The flip side of the lower inbound numbers from the U.S. and internationally last year was that fewer, the outbound numbers of Ontarians visiting the U.S. were down last year as well. Probably a reflection of the recession as much as anything, and we know that the value of the Canadian dollar, as it goes up against the U.S., the number of Canadians